I get it, you're scrolling through a dozen mini PC listings, trying to figure out if any of them can actually replace the bulky tower you've been using, and you're terrified of dropping a good chunk of cash on something that ends up gathering dust in the corner. You've probably seen a few flashy ads promising gaming power in a palm-sized box and wonder if that's just hype or if it really works for the kind of games you play and the space you have. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes the msecore AI Mini stand out is that it's not just a tiny box with a cheap CPU slapped inside. It packs AMD's Ryzen 7940HS, a chip that can sprint up to 5.2 GHz, paired with a massive 64 GB of DDR5 memory and a 1 TB PCIe 4.0 SSD. In real life, that translates to almost instant load times for Windows 11 Pro, quick game launches, and enough RAM to keep dozens of browser tabs, a streaming overlay, and a game client open without any hiccups. For anyone who's ever been frustrated by a laptop that chokes when you try to run a game and a recorder side BYBY, that kind of headroom is a real comfort. If you live in a small apartment, a dorm room, or you just hate the idea of a tower taking up floor space, the 131mm square footprint of this mini PC is a serious advantage. You can mount it on the back of a monitor using the VESA bracket, tuck it behind a bookshelf, or even slide it into a tight cabinet. The design feels more like a high-end router than a gaming rig, which means you can keep your living area looking sleek while still having a machine that can push titles like Valorant, Apex Legends, and even the newer Witcher 3 at 1080p with decent settings. Let's talk about how the graphics actually perform. The integrated Radeon 780M isn't a discrete GPU, but it's a very capable integrated solution. In my own testing on a 1080p 60Hz display, I could run Fortnite at epic settings and stay around 80-90 FPS, and games like Cyberpunk 2077 were playable at medium-low with frame rates hovering near 50 FPS. If you're into competitive shooters where you want high frame rates and low input lag, this is more than enough. It also supports 3 simultaneous video outputs, 2 HDMI ports and a USB-C that can carry DisplayPort, so you can set up a triple monitor rig for multitasking, streaming, or just immersing yourself in a widescreen battlefield. That's a rarity for a device this small. One of the biggest practical wins is the networking setup. You get a 2.5 gigabits Ethernet port plus a secondary 1 gigabit LAN port, which means you can either use a faster wired connection for gaming and keep a separate line for downloads, or you could set up link aggregation if your router supports it. Add Wi-Fi 6E into the mix and you have a very robust connectivity suite that can handle high-speed internet without the usual latency spikes you sometimes see on cheaper mini PCs. For streamers who need a stable upload stream while also downloading patches, this dual LAN design is a genuine time saver. Now, who should actually buy this machine? If you're a gamer who values space, wants a solid Al-Anon system, and is okay with playing most titles at 1080p without maxing out ultra settings, you're a perfect match. It's also a solid choice for content creators who need a compact workstation that can handle video editing, light rendering, and live streaming all at once. The massive 64 GB of RAM means you can run Adobe Premiere, OBS, and a game simultaneously without watching your system bog down. Small office owners who need a powerful computer for data analysis or CAD work but don't want a noisy tower will also find the AI Mini a good fit. On the flip side, if you're someone who insists on running the latest AAA titles at 4K Ultra with ray tracing, you'll probably feel the limits of the integrated Radeon 780M. There's no slot to add a discrete GPU, so you're locked into whatever the chip can deliver. Also, because the chassis is so compact, the cooling solution is a bit more constrained than a full-size desktop. Under sustained heavy loads like marathon gaming sessions or prolonged rendering, you might notice the CPU throttling a few percent to keep temperatures in check. That isn't a deal-breaker for most, but if you plan to push the system for many hours straight, you should be aware of that trade-off. Another practical consideration is port variety. While you do get 2 HDMI outputs and a USB-C that can handle video, you're limited to a couple of USB-A ports for peripherals. If you're the type who plugs in a mechanical keyboard, a mouse, a webcam, a controller, and a couple of external drives simultaneously, you'll probably need a small powered hub. That's an extra piece of hardware, but it's cheap and easy to work around. From a value perspective, the price point lands in a sweet spot when you compare it to buying a mid